Yo, what's going on, y'all? First and foremost, happy Saturday to everybody enjoying their weekends. Hopefully, everybody is staying safe, especially during these very, very tough times as we are starting to see a rise in coronavirus cases again. And of course, with early voting going along, we are starting to see people wait hours upon hours upon hours to cast their vote for the upcoming election. So with all that being done, just want to make sure everybody's being safe. Of course, my name is Fight Critic, and I wanted to kind of follow up on the video I made shortly after Teofimo Lopez beat Vasyl Lomachenko, in my opinion, convincingly. Vasyl Lomachenko and his team, in my opinion, have suddenly now come to a halt, and they're scrambling. They're trying to figure out a way to get a rematch. They're struggling to kind of figure things out. And ultimately, when you look at it, it's their fault why they can't get a rematch. The whole idea of them putting out there about Vasyl Lomachenko's shoulder and Vasyl Lomachenko undergoing surgery on Tuesday to repair a shoulder that supposedly he hurt a couple weeks leading up to the fight. And in my opinion, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to be honest. As a boxing fan, I don't give a shit. The only people that I feel bad for in this situation are the bettors. Because the only people who ever get in this situation exploited are people who bet money. Because as somebody who bets money on a fight, if a guy comes out after he loses and says, oh, well, I was hurt, I would be extremely pissed off at the person who went out of their way not to let me know this information. That changes my opinion on the fight. Something as, crucial as a shoulder injury definitely changes the dynamic of how you would bet on a fight. But when I look at, Lomachenko and him going through the situation with his shoulder, it kind of rings a bell. And it takes me back to 2013 when Guillermo Rigondeaux absolutely destroyed Nonito Donaire, broke his face, beat him convincingly for 11 rounds in 2.5 minutes. Of course, Nonito Donaire had that flash knockdown in the 12th round. But outside of that, guy was getting his fucking face rearranged by Guillermo Rigondeaux. And after the fight, all of a sudden, Nonito Donaire has a shoulder injury and he has to go get surgery on it. And, I didn't pay much attention to it, but a lot of people, they always try to take away the significance of the victory when they want to bring these situations up. And then you kind of fast forward later to 2015 with Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao, leading up to the Floyd Mayweather fight, was scrambling to get a Toradol shot, which, of course, I have to mention to people, the Toradol shot is what they give to NFL players the day of a game so that this way it can numb their entire body. It's not a sedative in a way that it relaxes and calms you down. It's basically like if you took, a high infused version of CBD where you just don't feel anything. You could still perform. And you saw the commission turn it down because Pacquiao had filled out his paperwork. He's just like, why do you need a Toradol shot if you're not injured? That doesn't make sense. And then he shows up to the post-fight conference wearing a fucking sling, talking about he hurt his shoulder during the fight. And then nobody really knows when did he hurt his shoulder. Then it comes out he hurt the shoulder leading up to the fight. And he goes off and he has surgery, and he talks about him having to do all this saltwater swimming that helps his shoulder. And then he comes back, a couple months later, and he throws the same amount of fucking punches. So I didn't buy the whole Pacquiao having a shoulder injury in the Floyd situation. I just thought it was just them realizing that you took one of the all-time great fighters, and he looked horrible in the biggest fight of his career, facing arguably the guy that he was built up to beat. So when you look at, this situation with Vasyl Lomachenko and his team, because I can't say it's Lomachenko specifically the fighter, but his manager is coming out saying, oh, he had an injury, we want to make sure that he's healthy and we're trying to get a rematch. And then, of course, you talk about his father saying, oh, we wanted to postpone the fight leading up to the fight. Then why didn't you fucking do that? If his shoulder was such a problem that it made a lot of concern that you wanted to push the fight, you would have fucking done so. We've seen this time and time. How many times have we seen a guy get an injury and we postpone the fight? And yeah, there's going to be some backlash. Somebody's going to be like, oh, he's ducking. He's trying to get out of the fight. But then you ultimately get the fight, That's just the way that it happens. But when you talk about a guy who deceives the fans, deceives the community, deceives the bettors, and then he goes through with this fight after talking big shit and loses, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, well, he had a shoulder problem, he's gonna get surgery, this and that, we hope he can get a rematch. No, fuck that rematch, And leading up to the fight, it was already made known, it was publicized that there was not a rematch clause put into place. And what did you see people do? Oh, Vasyl Lomachenko is he's a once-in-a-lifetime generation type of talent. He's not going to need a rematch for this. He's going to beat Teofimo Lopez convincingly. Teofimo Lopez has never seen a guy as quick as Vasyl Lomachenko. He uses angles. He gets inside and outside. He can beat you to the punch. His footwork is better. His foot speed is better. His punching is better. He's the more accurate fighter. And then he goes in and he gets absolutely shell-shocked, gun-shy for 7 rounds. And then he mounts everything that he can possible to try to come back in the fight. And even in the late parts of the fight, he almost gets stopped. We end up getting a new champion, and all of a sudden it's, oh, Teofimo should honor a rematch to the champion. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not honoring shit if I'm Teofimo Lopez. And I'm happy that he told him, fuck a rematch. Vasyl Lomachenko should get right back in line, just like Teofimo Lopez should, if he would have lost. Because you know why? Teofimo Lopez would have not gotten a rematch if he was on the other side of the coin, regardless of if there was an injury or not. Teofimo Lopez, if he would have been in that position where he went gun shy for 7 rounds versus Vasyl Lomachenko, and then looked like he was going to get stopped in the 12th round, and he lost the unanimous decision, everybody would keep saying, no need for a rematch. Vasyl Lomachenko just did what he needed to do. Teofimo Lopez is going to have to be the guy who should not be starting the fight so late. But all of a sudden, it's on the other side, and oh, Teofimo Lopez, he should honor the rematch. If you want to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. I don't believe in shit like that. If you win the fight, you win the fight. God forbid there's any controversy where a guy legitimately wins and he loses, but this wasn't the situation. You can't find convincing rounds from 1 to 7 to give to Vasyl Lomachenko. It's just being honest about it. And even from 7 to 11, there's a lot of really good back and forth movement. There's only maybe 2 rounds, clear rounds, that Vasyl Lomachenko won in the entire fight. And in round 12, for anybody who has their scorecard a draw, meaning that you scored at 6-6, that means that 12th round, you either had Lomachenko ahead or you thought he won the round. And there's no way that you could say that he did either of those. So let's just be honest about it. If Vasyl Lomachenko really wants this rematch, go get Devin Haney's title. Because that's the only way that it'll happen. Either go get Devin Haney's title, either fight your way back up to get, added to an eliminator, and then fight your eliminator and then force a fight. I don't think Teofimo Lopez is going to turn down a mandatory challenger, especially if it's Vasyl Lomachenko. And for Teofimo, he is not letting this win get to his head when you look at it. For a lot of people who've given him all this credit, they're doing this, doing that, he's like, no, there's still a lot more work for me to do. Like, I understand, like, I just won the biggest fight of my career. Arguably, I'm an undisputed champion. Seen in the public's eye, I've got my thoughts on that, and you guys have heard me speak about that. But there's still a lot more work for me to do. And he summarized it pretty well when he said, everybody wants to be Floyd Mayweather. Everybody wants to be Money Mayweather. But nobody wants to be Pretty Boy. And you have to be Pretty Boy in order to be Money Mayweather. And for him to say that, It shows that he has a lot of maturity. He knows what he needs to do, and he knows that he's just scratching the surface in terms of what he can do as a champion. And he knows that the next step for him is to fight Devin Haney. And for a lot of people, Devin Haney's been talking about he doesn't know if he could still make lightweight over the next X amount of period of time. That just tells me that you're probably going to make this fight difficult to happen. You know, saying that, oh, you're not going to have this amount of time to do this and do that, dude, just stop it. You fought X amount of fights at this weight. You have an opportunity to fight another guy who is just as young as you, just as experienced as you. And the only thing that's separating both of you guys is that he's got this big win over the guy who was the man in the division. So it makes perfect sense for you guys to fight each other, because I'm getting annoyed seeing two WBC champions, you know, the same way I get annoyed seeing two WBA champions. And I don't want to keep seeing two champions in two divisions with two of the same belts. It's annoying me. I'd rather have one champion. So I would love for Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, if not they fight next, to fight after their next fights, because Devin Haney's going to absolutely destroy Yuri Gamboa. Teofimo Lopez, I don't know if he's got a mandatory challenger due, but I would love for him to get the number one ranked, the guy who would be next, out of the way. Get this guy out of the way. Let him do a hometown fight, you know, a quick gimme, and then you make the Devin Haney fight. It makes a ton of sense that way. But when it comes to Vasyl Lomachenko, dude, if you had an issue, if you were injured, just postpone the fight. We are in a pandemic right now. There's no essential need for a fight to get made during this climate. You could have extended that fight. You could have said, hey, let's give ourselves another 8 weeks and revisit the fight and postpone a date. Everybody would have been happy. You know, nobody would have been upset. You know, maybe you guys come in a little bit overtrained because there's a little bit more extra time out of the ring. But you guys had already spent over a year outside of the ring. So if people waited over a year to see you fight, I don't think they're going to be that upset if they waited an extra 2 months. Especially with how, you know, you claimed, or your team claimed, how severe this injury was. You know, go fucking swim and get some salt water on that shit like Pacquiao.